In 1984, Busch Gardens opened what would arguably become known as the best suspended roller coaster in the world. When BG Dub opened Loch Ness Monster in 1978, it would become known as one of the most successful and well-known roller coasters during its time. Those interlocking loops were icons in the amusement industry. So, Busch Gardens decided that they needed to add another revolutionary coaster, but this time, catered towards the families. That coaster would be none other than the Big Bad Wolf. When the Big Bad Wolf opened, it would become known as one of the best roller coasters in the entire world. But now, it's known as the most sorely missed defunct roller coaster. So why did it close? Let's dive into the history behind one of Aero Development's greatest creations. This is the story behind the Big Bad Wolf.
Our tubular steel runaway mine trains were a runaway success. We turned the amusement industry upside down with the first steel coaster to travel upside down. We suspended your disbelief by creating a coaster that suspended its riders from an overhead track. Our twisted thinking brought you the corkscrew, the boomerang, the bow tie, the butterfly, and the interlocking loop, all of which threw our competition for a loop. We're Aerodynamics, and while other manufacturers are content to coast along, Aero continues to speed down the fast track that's advanced our coaster technology light years beyond anyone else. In fact, we've helped America's most exciting parks have record-breaking attendance for the past 20 years.
Aerodynamics, also known as Aero Development, also known as, well, Aero, were the kings of the OG coaster war throughout the 1970s and 80s. Aero would become the first ever coaster manufacturer to make a modern coaster go upside down. When the corkscrew opened in Knott's Berry Farm in 1975, it would become one of the most innovative and awe-inspiring roller coasters to be built. The manufacturer would continue to build more of these modern steel inverting roller coasters around the country. Some of the most recognized being Corkscrew at Cedar Point, Demon at Six Flags Great America, and Black Widow at Six Flags New England. Following the success of Aero's corkscrews, custom loopers, and shuttle loop models, Busch Gardens Williamsburg decided to buy their own custom looper. However, they wanted something a little different. Loch Ness Monster opened to the public on June 6, 1978. This would become Busch Gardens Williamsburg's first ever extreme roller coaster. And boy did they choose a good one. While this coaster not only interacted with the terrain, soars over the Rhine River, and hides a triple helix inside a massive tunnel, this would become one of the first and last roller coasters to include interlocking loops. This element would contain two loops stacked on one another, and it would wow the general public and draw enthusiasts from around the country just to experience this insane element. In the late 70s, Aero would introduce a new model to the amusement industry.
When we come up with an idea for a new thrill ride, or screen maker, if you will, such as a suspended coaster, one of the first things that we do is that we come up with an artist's conception of the ride. Then many times we find that to check the ride dynamics, we make a scale model such as this. Pete, can you let it drop now?
Aero would then proceed to build a prototype for this new coaster. They would later expand into having an inversion, however, we would never see that actually get built. Aero's prototype was ambitious, as they would proceed to push this new model into their market. And one day, the first ever Aero suspended swinging coaster would become a reality.
It swoops and dives from 100 feet above the ground, and there's no track beneath it. Designers call the Bat the world's first and only hanging roller coaster. More than a dozen men at the Aero Hus Company developed the plans. It took them 3 years. Then construction began, and John Rood made sure their dream came true.
The Bat opened to the public at Kings Island in April of 1981. And no, this isn't the Bat that's operating at the park still to this day. This Bat opened as one of the most radical coasters ever built, with all eyes aimed at another astonishing creation by Aero. The coaster was praised as it packed snappy transitions and high forces being applied to your body. Unfortunately, the ride would be down more than it would be open, and that would be due to high stress being placed on the unbanked turns. Kings Island would try their best to keep this coaster alive, but after 3 seasons of operation, the Bat would close for good in 1984. When the time came for Busch Gardens Williamsburg to add a new coaster, Schwarzkopf would introduce their own prototype for a suspended swinging roller coaster. Busch Gardens Williamsburg would give Schwarzkopf a go, since at that time, Busch Gardens already had 2 Schwarzkopf roller coasters operating at the park. Unfortunately, right when footers were laid and most of the construction was taking place, Anton Schwarzkopf would declare bankruptcy, so any Schwarzkopf project that was taking place would be cancelled, and this would include the one at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Instead of giving up, Busch Gardens decided to call Aero, and with the success following from Loch Ness Monster, this was a great opportunity for them. And they asked if they could build one of their own suspended swinging coasters for their park. So in 1983, construction will begin on Aero's newest roller coaster, and they wanted to redeem themselves after the failure that happened with the Bat. So, Aero would design a new suspended coaster that would interact with themed sets and the terrain wrapping around the Rhine River. And then finally, on June 15, 1984, the Big Bad Wolf would open to the public. When it opened, fans of the park were going crazy that Aero and Busch Gardens Williamsburg did it again. They built another astonishing roller coaster that would become known as one of the best roller coasters in the world. The Big Bad Wolf would continue to operate throughout the 1980s and 1990s and even a majority of the 2000s. Throughout its life, the coaster would throw guests through the village of Busch Gardens Williamsburg and have one of the greatest finales of all time. Let's take a look at the layout. The coaster would start off with a small dip out of the station and make its way to the first lift hill. After a 50-foot climb, the coaster would then descend a small drop and hit a wide bank turn to the left. After going under a bridge, it would then soar to the right, swinging past the village, and with great speed continue to trek through the village with another bank turn to the right. After a small straight section, the coaster would dive down into a 360-degree helix and slam its riders into the first brake run. Following a small turn, it would then climb a 100-foot lift hill and prepare riders for the grand finale. After a quick turn to the left, the coaster would dive down a massive 80-foot drop and in a quick bank turn to the left. This element would become one of the most picturesque views in the park and also become the most intense part of the coaster. It would then be followed by another forceful bank turn to the right and hit one final turn into the last brake run. The Big Bad Wolf was one of the most visually stunning roller coasters, and those brave enough to ride it would say that it did not disappoint. So why did it close? Unfortunately, just like the Bat, the track would suffer major stress due to the high forces being placed on its bank turns. Busch Gardens Williamsburg even tried adding trims to the final drop to reduce stress. However, it didn't work out. The park kept on trying their best to preserve this legendary coaster, and they did manage to do it for a while, but in 2009, the reign of the wolf would come to an end. On September 7, 2009, right after Labor Day, the Big Bad Wolf would close for good. Fans of the coaster were devastated by this news and couldn't believe that the Wolf would finally go. 3 years following the closure and deconstruction of the Big Bad Wolf, Busch Gardens Williamsburg, that was recently just bought by SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment, would build Verbolten, a Sierra multi-launch coaster that would try its best to replace one of the most legendary roller coasters ever built. While Verbolten was praised for its forceful launches and crazy indoor experience, it just couldn't top the Wolf. The Black Forest show building would completely replace the village that Big Bad Wolf would once soar through. But lucky enough, Busch Gardens Williamsburg would conclude Verbolten the same way the Wolf would, While Verbolten is a great attraction, nothing will compare to the village and conclusion and forceful layout of one of the most legendary roller coasters ever built. Lucky enough to this day, Loch Ness Monster is still operating in all its glory, and various other aero-suspended swinging coasters still operate to this day. But just like the Bad Kings Island and the Big Bad Wolf, nothing will compare to the forceful experience that Aero delivered with these insane roller coasters. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the second edition of The Story Behind. Make sure to comment down below what you guys would like to see next on The Story Behind. Also, for those of you who are already subbed to my channel and are having trouble having the notification bell on, just real quickly unsub and sub back to my channel, and the notification bell should start working again right away. So this is Hunter from Theme Park Hunting. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. I'll see you guys later, and follow the thrill.